Let me ask you something. Do you feel like a failure? Do you feel like you're nothing but a walking sack of flaws held by a sack of meat? Do you wish you could change it? If so, how would you do it? Would you try changing your dietary habits? Eat less junk food? Eat more veggies? Etc. Maybe try exercising more? Or hitting the gym 3 times a week, right? Maybe you finally ask out that super hot coworker that has you tongue tied every time you try to talk to her. Oh, I know. You'll try turning to faith to seek out some higher form of encouragement, won't you? Let me guess though, you've tried most, if not all, of the aforementioned methods, haven't you? You've done what the hippies and shrinks have spouted at you, and you still feel that you have no place in this godforsaken world, right? I'll bet you sell your soul just to feel like you mean something in this life, wouldn't you? I bet you wish you could be perfect. What if you could be? Now, before you accuse me of blowing smoke, hear me out. Yes, there is a way for you and I, human beings, to be perfect. Just imagine it for a second. You could live for the rest of your life without flaws. No, you'd live unable to create flaws. You'd never make any mistakes. You'd never hurt anybody. You'd always be able to finish what you start. And best of all, you'll never fail at anything again. Sounds great, right? I'll bet it sounds too good to be true to you, doesn't it? I can practically hear your next words coming a mile away. How in the hell am I supposed to make myself perfect? Well, if you really are that desperate to know, I can tell you how. Don't ask me right now how I know about what I'm about to tell you. I'll get to that later. In all honesty, it's all something I myself am still trying to comprehend. For now, if you're still serious about this, here's how to begin. A quick history lesson on this is that the game or ritual itself is called the Ritual of the Damn Lamb. It was apparently used by various lesser-known, unnamed and underground religious societies and or cults in older times, usually as a way of a sanction, or for seeking some divine forgiveness for trespassing in some way to the faith. Only very, very, very few individuals today from those faiths are still around and might would still use this practice today. I say all this to say that there's essentially a prerequisite for attempting this. You have to believe in something. It doesn't have to be Christianity, obviously, given that the religions that practice this weren't exactly what most would consider to be Christians themselves. You could be a Christian, Catholic, Buddhist, Muslim, Wiccan, or even some made-up religious belief, like Heaven's Gate, just as long as you believe in the existence of some higher power. You're set to begin this practice. Here's what you need: sticks or twigs, an empty room, or at least a length and width of 6 to 8 feet of open floor space, a blade or object sharp enough to draw blood, a blindfold of some sort. To begin, take the sticks or twigs you've gathered and place them into your empty space, forming them into the shape of whatever symbol your talisman represents, your personal faith or beliefs. You'll need to make the symbol large enough to lie down on top of. So, the number of sticks will vary according to the shape and size of the symbol. Next, remove all clothing, and using your sharp object, pierce the palms of your hands and smear your blood at the points where your hands, head, and feet would be. Lie down inside the shape of your symbol and put on your blindfold. Make sure your blindfold's on tight, painfully tight if you need to. You should be able to see nothing but complete darkness throughout for this to work. Lastly, take your sharp object and carve an X into the center of your chest and whisper, "In the names of those that stand beyond our veil, I offer unto thee my blood, my flesh, and my mind for sale. Take it, for I am thy damned lamb, and grant me perfection that I may never again fail." Now, lay calmly inside your symbol. Eventually, you start to feel a stinging sensation like you've been poked with a bunch of hot needles or shards of glass in your chest. Keep calm and lie still. Trust me, movement will only make it hurt worse. You should start hearing multiple faint whispers circling simultaneously around in your mind. They'll each be in a different language and different tones. Some will just whisper like it's trying to tell you a secret, while others will scream to you like they're in pain. Again, stay calm and try to listen to each word being said. You should start to hear the words from together to create a jumbled, distorted mess of words, yet you'll somehow be able to comprehend it in your own language. What exactly is said may vary, but essentially it should be something to the effect of, "I have come, my child. What thou seek?" To this you must answer one word: perfection. Now, you should start to feel the stabbing sensation in your hands and feet as well. Again, stay calm and still. The voice will ask your name, your age, sex, date of birth, and finally, what you believe in. Answer the questions clearly and honestly. It will know if you're lying, and it will make this whole thing that much more painful to you. Now, here's where your endurance is tested. The voice will proceed to describe moments in your life where you've exhibited some imperfection or flaw. It will describe in great detail to you, essentially forcing you to relive the moment yourself. At first, it'll be something small, something you'd normally pass off, like the little white lies you used to tell your mom and dad to try and get out of trouble, or maybe even the time you got away with sneaking off with that dollar store candy bar. Over time, however, it will start to detail more and more personal flaws or embarrassments in your life, the ones you've tried to keep secret, as well as even the ones you've managed to repress. It will then ask you to either confess or deny what was said. Whatever it is, like before, answer truthfully. For each confession, the pain in your hands, feet, chest will gradually become worse, eventually becoming almost unbearable. Remain calm and still and continue to answer honestly. Eventually, the described moments will have caught up to the present and will then ask you if you wish to be made perfect. Should you answer no, I can say what would happen. Now, here's where I answer your question from before, about how I know all of this. It was about a year ago, to the day now, that I performed this ritual. I was looking at my final days on death row. The needle was waiting for me. I won't go into detail on what all I'd done, or should I say, what all didn't I do to land me there. Suffice to say, I was a very bad man who's destroyed, in many different ways, the lives of good people, and I'll be the first to tell you that I deserved every bit of what was waiting for me. That was the day I was to be visited by a priest for the last confession. By that point, I'd already been long past the state of mind or heart to care about clearing my conscience. I'd already confessed to everything in the courtroom. What good was it gonna do me to repeat myself to some random pious moron now? The way I saw it, my place in hell was booked and reserved, and nothing was gonna change that. I remember the first walk up to my cell. He was a middle-aged man wearing a black trench coat and hat like he was an exorcist or something, and his face was pale and gaunt. To tell the truth, I almost thought I'd finally lost my mind, and I was now seeing a ghost or something when I saw him at first. For a while, he just stared at me, with the coldest, deadest eyes I'd ever seen outside of a Vietnam vet. Well, I said annoyed, either spout your scriptures or shove off. I've already confessed everything. I'm screwed no matter what I say or do now, so unless the miracle you're about to run your mouth about is that you're holding a pardon from the governor, please spare me. He just continued staring daggers at me, and I was tempted to do something to cause disruption just to make him leave. I'm here, he said in a cracked yet baritone voice, to offer you salvation, Mr. Keller. I looked at him. Again, he was insane before chuckling dryingly. Despite this, he just kept staring at me. Are you serious? I asked in disbelief. Salvation? What do you think you're gonna get me to? Give my heart to Jesus or some shit like that? Look, I stopped buying into all that crap long ago. Trust me, there's no saving my soul. He stood motionless and silent. I could see from the look on his face that his mind, at least, he wasn't kidding about whatever he was talking about. That said, what the hell was that supposed to mean? Offering me salvation? He took a deep breath and spoke again. Perhaps I should rephrase. I'm here, Mr. Keller, to offer you the opportunity for perfection. Now I really was confused. Huh? What are you talking about now? A chance at perfection? What's that supposed to mean? He was silent again. Well, I urged quickly, feeling my patience leave me. Exactly what I said, Mr. Keller. I'm here to offer you a chance at becoming perfect. No more pain, no flaws, none of the wickedness in your heart. You would never do any wrong again. I was at a loss for words. Normally, by this point, I'd either stop listening and ignore them until they went away, or I'd have told them exactly where they could cram and then made them leave. This time, though, something was different. For one thing, he said all of this with the most dire conviction. In most cases, I can tell when they're trying to just spout their usual jabber out at me about the gospel. This wasn't that, though. After all, he clarified that he was offering me perfection instead of the Lord's mercy, or anything like that. Despite this, I still didn't completely convince me that this was legit. What does he mean by becoming perfect? What are you? Allow me to enter, and I can show you what I'm talking about. Now I was convinced. This guy popped a few screws loose. Right, let you in my cell? Like they'd even allowed that. You're funny, pal. He sighed and looked down before saying he'd be back again tomorrow. Use the time you have left wisely, Mrs. Keller, was the last thing he said to me before turning and leaving the block, sauntering down the hallway like some supervillain in a movie. That night, I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, wondering who in the name of God this crackpot was and what he was going on about. Sure enough, like clockwork, come 10 a.m. the next morning, there he was, approaching my cell in that same menacing fashion he did previously that day before a duffel bag. I was caught off guard, however, when I saw two of the guards then unlocked and opened the cell door, letting him in. Before I could ask, the guards themselves had lost their minds. He held up his hand, silencing me, and said, "Just listen to me." Without any real way to argue or protest, I scoffed and gestured for him to go on. He then went on to tell me about the ritual of the damn lamb, how to perform it, and the different groups that performed it for the divination and all that. As I said earlier, while he relied on, he started pulling out the aforementioned materials out of his bag: the stick, the blade, and the blindfold. I was instantly shocked seeing the knife. How in the hell did he manage to get that past the front? I wondered. Probably the same way he managed to convince them to even let him into my cell at all. In any case, he then asked me if I was ready to perform the ritual to become perfect. To quote his words, now I was in the silent one. Has anyone ever completed this? I can't say for certain. Only they themselves would know. And where exactly are they now? I was not feeling good about this. He looked away from the supplies to me, fixing me in that cold, demented glare again. Again, Mr. Keller, I cannot say for certain. Those that embark on this trial do so alone. If you will answer your questions, I will say that those I knew to have performed this ritual have not seen since. That was it. I couldn't take this ominously vague crap anymore, and I felt like this ritual or whatever it was not a good idea. Okay, look, I'm not interested in whatever the hell this is, and my patience is just about gone, so I'll ask you one more time to piss off and leave me alone. Like the last time, he just lowered his head and suddenly got up and left. I was then alone again in my cell, 2 days away from execution. Funny enough, it actually took me a minute to realize that the man had left his stuff behind in my cell. Looking back, I'm certain he did this on purpose. I spent hours just looking at the materials, thinking about everything the man said about this ritual. He had to have been nuts, I thought. How would I become perfect? I still wasn't sure what he even meant when he said perfect. Perfect how? And how exactly would this make me become perfect? Not to mention the idea that who attempted this have never been seen again. Another part of me, however, couldn't help but look at the stuff he left behind, wondering what perfection would be like. No more pain, no more flaws, no more of your wickedness in your heart. I can't lie here. I know I said that I was beyond hoping for anything other than to burn for the things I'd done, which was true. That being said, that doesn't preclude me from the weight of my conscience. That's right, even a fiend like me has a bit of a heart after all. Imagine that. I mean, yeah, it still sounded like a lot of crap, and it didn't sound like it turned out good for anyone who did it. As far as I knew, it wasn't even possible to actually complete this ritual. And even if I did, what would even happen? Then again, what would I really be losing here if I did it? It was with this mind that then I began setting up everything for the ritual. Though I wasn't any devout Christian or anything like that by the stretch of the imagination, I did believe there was a God out there, a God that would damn me as soon as he saw me. Anyway, I had set up the sticks in the form of the cross, and then tied the blindfold around my head before carving the X in my chest and reciting the incantation. In the names of those that stand beyond our veil, I offer unto thee my blood, my flesh, and my mind for sale. Take it, for I am thy damn lamb, and grant me perfection that I never again fail. For about 5 minutes, nothing was happening. I started wondering what might happen when all of the guards walked by to see all of this. Then again, how had they not already? I guess that old goat went and managed to pay them off for that too. Soon though, I did start to hear the whispers I mentioned before. Something else I should mention about this is how real they will sound. And what I mean by this is that they won't sound like some ghostly wail in what you're probably thinking. No, this will sound like the voices of normal people, clear and defined, and they sound like they're nearby. It was all soft at first, and I thought it may be a couple of the guards whispering outside the cell. Then thought they got louder and louder. I noticed how they were all in different languages, and one was in Spanish, another one was in, I think was German, and so on and so forth. A couple of them, I'm not even sure, were in an actual known language, more like some archaic tongues or something like that. Finally, they mixed together to form the words in English.
I have come, my child. What dost thou seek?
The voice was commanding and hypnotic in a way, despite it also sounding half dead. My tongue was frozen for a moment before remembering what I had to say, stammering out, perfection. Immediately I cried out and ceased in pain when I felt stabbing in my hands and feet. The movement caused the pain to amplify. Once I was able to force myself to lie still, I heard the voice ask me my name, age, birthday, sex, and my belief. I struggled to answer, feeling the constant pain in my fighting the urges to size up again. My name is Jeremiah Keller. I'm 35, born in April 6, 1984. Male. The pain increased dramatically, feeling like my hands and feet had been set on fire, and I heard the voice thunder in my head, asking me what I believed in. After moments of consideration and increasing pain, I finally blurted out, Christian, Baptist. Slowly, the burning subsided, and it went back to just feeling like my hands and feet were being stabbed. The voice then began to describe me when I was 5, and I used it to terrorize my nervous cat by nailing it with my Red Ryder. It also described how I would lie when questioned about it to get off scot-free. Finally, it asked me whether I admit my guilt or deny. I remembered that the man told me about being honest and confessing to my imperfections. When he told me about this, I had the feeling that lying would make the extra pain from before return. Yes, I confess. I let out a sharp yelp when the pain started erupting in the center of my chest, as well as the rest. At first, I thought I was suffering from a heart attack, which made me seize up again, in turn causing the pain to increase again. Next, the boy started telling me about the time when I was 8. I used the pocket knife I got for my birthday to shave my little sister's head in her sleep. This caused her to be rushed to the ER after I dug it too deep and embedded part of it in her head. She survived, but now she lives with major mental disabilities, chronic narcolepsy, severe amnesia, and even has trouble trying to talk because of it. When it asked me to confess or deny it this time, I was a lot more hesitant to answer. That was one of the many horrible things I've done that honestly I had damn near forgotten completely about until that moment, reliving it like I was tempted to deny anything to get rid of the guilt again. I deny. Big mistake. Before I could even finish saying that, I feel burning in my chest and limbs again. How much worse this time? Of course, the extreme pain would cause me to seize again. And yes, this made it worse again. Alright, I confess, I did it. I fucking did it. God, I'm sorry. Like before, my confession caused the burning to go away immediately. It was another minute before I could relax my body again, and the boys began another scene from my life. I don't know exactly how long it went on like this, the boys forcing me to confess to wrong or imperfect parts of my life while I struggled both from physical and emotional pain to answer the way I was supposed to. I know that, like I've said, it gradually started describing me more and more horrific things that I'd done over the years up to the present. The animals I used to torture just because the children I used to kidnap and hold for a ransom, some of which wouldn't live after I was through with them because mommy and daddy wouldn't pony up. The woman I'd brutally tortured and raped until they could barely even breathe. All of it replayed by the boys, all in their gruesome detail. And of course, each confession caused the stabbing sensation to hurt worse and worse. Part of me wondered if this was what they meant by the churches when they talked about divine judgment. In any case, I was indeed being judged here, but what the result of it at this point was anybody's guess. Finally, I had to confess to my last imperfection, the murder of a man and his pregnant wife, the one that finally landed me here. My body was in so much pain by now, I found myself wishing I'd just chosen the needle. It then asked me if I wished to become perfect. I was almost too scared to answer. What would happen to me if I said no? Would the burning pains come back? Maybe it would be something that felt even worse. Then again, maybe nothing would happen. Maybe it would just let me go, and I'd just go back to where I was before I started all of this. I figured though, I managed to make it to here. What's the point in backing out now anyway? Whatever happens, one way or another, I'm a goner. With this, I answered, yes. What happened next is too difficult to describe in a way that makes sense to you while being accurate. All at once, I felt that a giant gust of frigid air blasting in front of my face, and then I felt nothing. Now, when I say nothing, that's exactly what I mean. Nothing. Physically, mentally, or even emotionally. Nothing. It was as if someone had hollowed me out like a watermelon, leaving just an empty shell. Because of this, I thought I was dead at first. I realized otherwise, however, when I could hear sounds from all around me. There were voices, not like the ones I heard before, but actual people. I could hear all of them around me chatting, laughing, and even whispering. It was all just mundane stuff. Who's seeing who's running late, husbands telling their families I love you before heading out, stuff like that. But I heard it, and I understood it all. And it wasn't that at all. I could hear the sounds of every single insect or animal scurrying and teetering by. All of it in painful crystal clarity. Slowly, I removed the blindfold from my eyes to see that I wasn't in my cell anymore. I was now in a large field of bright green grass. Looking around, I found that I could see everything as well. Every blade of grass was clear and defined to me in every detail. I saw clouds gathering overhead, and they were defined too, as was the tiny crystalline clear droplets of water that fell from them. Now, what you're thinking now, that I'm just on drugs or something, describing my latest trip. But no, this wasn't that. Trust me, I would know the difference between a trip and reality. This was reality. I wasn't sure how, but it was. It was all real. I could now hear everything, see everything, understand everything. And yet, I felt nothing. Empty. I looked at my hands and my body to see that my skin was now pure ivory. I was naked and muscular, looking like a Greek god. I looked down to see a flower at my feet that was bleeding. Stooping down, I touched it, and I immediately began to bloom into the most beautiful radiant flower I've ever seen. I had the power to give life, the power to create, and yet, still, I felt nothing. Empty. I walked around the grassy plains, and I saw the grass and the flowers grow vibrant with life under my feet. Eventually, I found a deer who had been wounded, presumably by hunters. Like with the flower, one light tap of my finger and its vitality was restored, darting off into the forest with more energy than ever. I could heal the sick, even raise the dead. Yet, I could feel absolutely nothing. Empty. I could now do nothing but good in the world. I was now essentially a god. No, not a god. I was God. I could create, never destroy. I could heal, never harm. I could bring happiness, never despair. I could do all of this. Yet, I could feel nothing. I was empty. No, not empty. Perfect. That's when I realized exactly what I'd lost when I completed the ritual. I was now God on earth, but bound as a slave to perfection. I couldn't feel anymore all the joy and happiness I now bring to others, and yet I have none of my own. And now, I never will again. I couldn't admire the things I could do now. I couldn't be proud of my new ways because I couldn't feel pride. I couldn't cry for joy when I'd see the hurt be healed by me because I couldn't feel joy or tears. I couldn't be angry or hurt when I saw something or someone suffering because I couldn't feel anger or pain anymore. Happiness, sadness, joy, sorrow, pride, humility, everything, all gone. I wouldn't feel anything ever again. Empty. Perfect. As I said before, I lived like this for 2 years now, devoid of any soul or humanity. I was an evil man set to die in 2 days, and now I'm something else entirely, something more, and at the same time, less. And I will continue to live like this, a slave to perfection itself, until the end of time, for I myself cannot die, only live. Now that I've told you all of this, let me ask you, would you wish to be perfect? Hello everybody, I'm the humble narrator for Local 19. Nice to meet you. And I'm here because I want to give a big thank you to my man Child's Corpse for allowing me to read this amazing story for all of you guys tonight. If you guys like the story and would like to read more from him, I will leave a link down in the description to his Reddit as well as his Facebook. So make sure you guys go support him because he's a really good writer, and I will definitely read more of his stories here in the channel. But as for now, I want all of you to have a good night. Cheers.